Hey, check, bald eagle. Check that out. 2 bald eagles.
That's a pretty iconic shot.
Oh my God, dude. Hey, by the way, I paid those bald eagles.
Yeah.
Look at that. Holy shit. What?
I wonder if...
It's like the second bald eagle I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
Yeah, once was in North Carolina.
Welcome to Chattanooga, guys. The land of the fucking free. Even though I believe that Chattanooga whiskey is the best craft whiskey in America, the average bourbon consumer is still largely unaware of who we are and what we do.
What is paradise? And can you stay there? So here we are in Chattanooga, Tennessee, somewhere I've never been. And I have to say, it's absolutely gorgeous. Big mountains, a river that snakes through the land, and a vibrant city resting along the water. We came here to meet Tim Piersant and his team. They make Chattanooga whiskey.
Yeah, my name is Tim Piersant. I am the CEO and founder of Chattanooga Whiskey. I grew up here, Chattanooga, Tennessee, born and raised, 1981. Historically, just starting a business overnight doesn't really happen, right? Well, in 2011, with Facebook, that was the perfect opportunity to start a company overnight. Before we even filled out any LLC paperwork or, had an operating agreement or anything, we just launched the Chattanooga Whiskey Facebook page and said, we're bringing whiskey back to Chattanooga. Would you drink Chattanooga whiskey? The community jumped on that. We woke up the next morning and we had hundreds of people asking questions, and the next couple of days, thousands of people asking questions, and the attention took off really, really quickly. And within that, the local media got a hold of it, wanted to start doing interviews. We just sat down with them and we had an empty bottle of Chattanooga whiskey before it was branded Chattanooga whiskey, no label, with some whiskey in it, sat down at a coffee shop, did an interview, and ended up front page of the business section on Sunday morning. And the snowball effect happened really, really quickly. This is the first time anyone, that's been living in Chattanooga in the last, 50 plus years has probably even thought about a whiskey being made in Chattanooga again.
Tim carted us around to some of the most scenic viewpoints around the city. I loved that the first thing he did was show us this place. It set a good base for why you would start a business here. Tim's just one of those guys. He's a natural leader, has a quick wit, and a passion for the place he's from.
You can kind of see the Blue Ridge Mountains, see it all, see right through those trees, see how it kind of bumps up in the far, see that? See how the mountain, see the furthest mountain you can barely see? Yeah.
Wow, that's North Carolina?
That's North Georgia,
okay.
And then you can see it coming in North Carolina over here. Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah, I feel like it's gonna fall.
Well, you'll probably, it'll
stop me.
It'll stop you.
How long you been coming up here?
I mean, I went to church up here, when I was a kid. I grew up at the foot of Lookout, so I come up here. Been up here my whole life. But as far as come up here and hang out, I actually don't come up here and hang out all that often. Now that my kids, now that I'm an Uber driver for my kids. There's a bunch of really cool views, dude. This whole place is just pretty special.
Tim wanted to make a Chattanooga product, one of quality that represented the place he loved so much. But whiskey, like many good things in life, takes time. So in order to get going right away, he decided to start building the brand by doing what a lot of folks do, sourcing from MGP, with the idea that one day soon, they would make their own juice.
We had to source our bourbon in order to get started, in order to start our campaign in a bottle. And we found that from Lawrenceburg Distillers of Indiana, which is now known as MGP. The majority of the community was unaware that we were wanting to change laws to distill authentically here downtown for the first time since Prohibition, since before Prohibition.
In order for Tim to transition from his MGP whiskey to his own, he would first have to change the law. You see, when Tim started this business, it was still illegal to distill in Chattanooga due to the lingering, outdated laws from Prohibition.
And if it weren't for the Vote Whiskey campaign, I don't think that the community would have even known to rally around us. There was a prior bill passed in 2009 in Tennessee, but it was unsuccessful in that it didn't open up the majority of the counties in the state of Tennessee and left out some major municipalities. And this was a new bill that would open up essentially the rest of Tennessee that isn't a dry county. It was met with fairly significant opposition within the Tennessee legislature. The hospitals were going to be full of people in a drunken stupor, and they're not probably going to drink any more liquor than they're already drinking. It's just instead it's going to be made here, and our goal is to promote responsibility and to promote history and experience and product integrity. We persevered and passed that bill, House Bill 102, Senate Bill 129, in May of 2013. Whiskey to the People was born out of getting the laws passed. Okay, Vote Whiskey was successful. Now it's time to bring whiskey back to the people for the first time in 100 years. And that's why it's on a giant mural wall at the experimental distillery. I had no intention of being a distiller. That's not my strong suit. Through industry contacts, I was introduced to Grant McCracken, and he instantly bought in and wanted to be a part of it, even though he had no ties to Chattanooga.
I grew up in a Midwest family. You know, my parents always encouraged me and my brother that we could be anything we wanted to be, do anything we wanted to do, and kept my eyes and ears open, and home brewing kind of quenched that thirst. So play around pretty much in every beer style imaginable, work with every yeast, every hop, and also every unmalted and malted grain that we could get our hands on. On my own time and dime on the side, I was just very interested in the idea of distilling. I didn't really know how it worked, and that's what intrigued me about it. It's a storytelling place. It's a way to gather people around and communicate what you value, what you think is important in the context of not only the future and the present, but also the past. And that's where it resonated, this idea of storytelling through an object that you share together.
With Grant on his team, Tim had a decision to make: follow the grand plan or stick to what works.
When you get that far into the process and you go through multiple capital rounds and you have a board of directors and a fiduciary responsibility of shareholders, and then you decide, hey, the last 8 years that we've been building this brand on the backs of MGP, yeah, who cares about that? We're gonna stop that. We're gonna do our own thing because we think it's better. That is risky. Now, the thing that I didn't know about Grant was, his ability to be a visionary. And so when he came on board and he helped me build the experimental distillery, yes, it was a lot smaller than the original plans to build something great at Chattanooga Whiskey. It was a blessing in disguise. It was the best thing that ever happened to us because it gave us the ability to explore bourbon to the degree that we believe no one else in America has ever explored.
We didn't have a 100-year-old mash bill to kind of pledge allegiance to.
Yeah.
We didn't have a style of, we weren't necessarily going to kiss the ring and make Tennessee whiskey all day, every day.
Sure.
We didn't feel like that was, if you're going to put 2 years of work into changing laws,
Yeah.
what's the point in just kind of making something that everybody else makes? In the legal world, you have class, which is whiskey, and then you have type, which is bourbon, rye, wheat, corn, those types of whiskeys, right? And we thought, well, let's create a new class. Let's create this Tennessee High Malt class, and that would be defined by what we considered high malt. So the question was, well, what is high? Well, 50% is 51% turns it into bourbon, right? 51% rye turns it into a rye whiskey, right? So that's almost too high. You're going to a level of a style kind of brim full moment. So half of that, this 25%, felt like a logical percentage to say, well, nobody's gonna disagree with a high malt being at least 25%. Any malted grain, Tennessee High Malt would be what we wanted it to be, very kind of open-ended. For our team, when we hear the word malt, it's more like visualizing a whole spice cabinet, fully loaded. So all of a sudden, if the rye grain is the color purple, well, then you can explore every hue, tint, shade, and tone of purple.
Yeah.
Our options of creating different flavor profiles are endless.
Yeah.
But it's still American whiskey.
From batch 001 to 010, batch 1 to 10, there was kind of a thesis statement of what we wanted to say in what Tennessee High Malt could be. So for 2 years and 100 barrels, all we did was listen.
And that was just something that, frankly, I had to trust Grant on. Is that this is gonna work out. Because all we had to judge it by was White Dog whiskey. That's insanity. Make the one recipe, make your flagship recipe, make it over and over and over again, and that's what's good for you.
You took your lashings, you understood where you made mistakes and never do this again and do more of this other thing. Barrel 91 came from that. So what you're holding in your hand is what we feel like is the kind of quintessential Tennessee High Malt expression. It's 4 grains, 3 of those are specialty malted grains. So you got honey malt, caramel malt, and a pale malted rye as well. And it's still a bourbon. It's 75% corn, and then the other 25% are the specialty malted grains. Was this result of just iteration after iteration after iteration. Notice that it's near the end of this road. You get through 91 barrels out of 100. We did almost like the opposite of A work to get to A work. And so it's a nostalgic process looking back. I can't believe that we agreed to ourselves to do it. Name me another time in the history of Tennessee that this will be the right decision to make. This was like that moment of lightning striking at the right moment, at the right place, at the right time. And I'm grateful to have been there when it happened.
It was time to take the best of the 100 recipes developed there and make them at scale at a new, larger distillery space down the road. The goal was simple.
The goal was to take this concept, this framework and overall recipe, and then scale it and perfect it in a different way. When it comes to coming up with a new concept, taking the pulse on what we all find cool together is a really important part of the process.
Sure.
If I just think it's cool and nobody else does, it's not gonna work, right?
Sure.
You get a little myopic or like too focused on your own idea or what it's supposed to be. Whereas if you start to widen that out, it's a matter of, you pull out the pen and paper and you say like, what do you guys think of this? And you get some and then all of a sudden the team starts giving you feedback of maybe it would be cooler if it was, we focused on this element over this element, or we've got whiskey that actually could tell this story. All of a sudden you start to reveal a truth of what the whiskey's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be an ego-driven process. This is supposed to be driven by what's best for the whiskey. So if you have a story to tell, and it's overlapping with another story you're telling, it's not what's best for the whiskey.
Yeah.
If it's a whiskey style or whiskey story that you feel like is important, but nobody else does, well then that's not what's best for the whiskey.
Chattanooga has 2 distilleries to this day. Their smaller experimental distillery where they try new things, and then their larger riverfront distillery to make whiskeys at scale. The larger distillery is actually an old car dealership. It has this big circular showroom with all these floor-to-ceiling windows. Walking around with Tim and Grant, we stopped to try some malted grains. Saw some whiskey being made in their large column still, and checked out the fermentation tanks. This is a much larger operation.
Chattanooga Whiskey is located in downtown Chattanooga, and our riverfront property on Riverfront Parkway is maybe 200 yards off of the banks of the Tennessee River. As a part of the Tennessee River, we are just down from the Tennessee River Gorge, which is one of the most beautiful, most iconic scenes in all of Tennessee. And very few people get to experience the beauty of the River Gorge.
So Ryan and I headed out on a very hot Chattanooga day, grabbed our gear, and met Tim off a dock on the Tennessee River.
We'll run down. It'll be like 30 minutes down, 30 minutes back.
Okay, cool.
Breeze should keep us safe, somewhat safe.
And we were off. I wondered what it was like growing up surrounded by all this beauty, this little slice of heaven.
I grew up on the Tennessee River. My dad always had boats. Some of my fondest memories around boats were like the first time, I was with my dad when he bought a boat, and searching in the classifieds, in the Times Free Press, back in the day, flipping through newspapers looking for. Some of the best memories were when my dad would circle, an inch, like a boat on a classified, like, hey, we should go and look at this one. And then the search and going to these people's houses and going into their barns. We found several. The first boat we had was in a barn, and we uncovered it, and it was, beautiful. It didn't matter what it was. It could have been like the smallest, shittiest boat in the world, and we were like, wow, this is it. This is the boat. Every weekend of my life that I can remember, we were on a boat on the Tennessee River. Well, when I was growing up, I made 2 trips a year. We spent 1 week in Easton, Maryland on the Chesapeake Bay where my grandparents lived. And we spent 1 week in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where my other grandparents lived. And those are our 2 vacations a year. And I am so fond of those 2 vacations. We would drive, so 11 hours north, 11 hours south, basically. And other than that, this was it. This was like we go down to South Florida, and my relatives who are big fishermen and surfers and all that, their paradise is where they live. They love it. And we feel the same way. We feel like our paradise is where we live, right here, and we didn't leave it very often.
For Tim, his paradise is right here, a place where the highways of America disappear into the mountains. We carved through the glass waters of the Tennessee River with Tim's seafoam vessel. I have a theory though. I believe it's not the place itself. I'd bet he agreed with me here too, that it's his experiences growing up here. Being on the river with his dad as a kid, and with his own family as an adult. And now, showing 2 guys interested in whiskey, what a wonderful place we are in. But I think Tim brought us to more than a place. It's a state of mind, an emotional state. A place he has the keys to and decided to let us in and share with us its beauty. So maybe paradise isn't a place at all, but it's as simple as a moment. A flash in the pan, a star streaking across the sky. But by the time you ask if anyone saw it, it's gone. Only for you to experience, to witness. Paradise, like happiness, is a feeling that comes in waves. They're just these moments that happen all throughout life. It's like being present. It's hard to be aware of when it's happening, but in retrospect, it's plain to see. We went to Chattanooga for the whiskey, but got even more than we bargained for. We got to enter Tim's paradise, Tim's Whiskeyland, and that to me will always beat whiskey.
Yeah. We can, if you guys want, we can go a little further or we can turn back, whatever's up for you.
I mean, I'm down for going for a little bit further just because it's nice, but like, how you feeling?
We'll go, we'll make this next couple turns and then we'll turn around.
Perfect.
All right, cool.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Chattanooga whiskey has come a long way. I wanted to know if Tim missed anything about the early days.
The excitement around that, the unknown around that, and the exploration and trying, you know, unaged whiskey off of a 100-gallon pot still on a daily basis at 8 a.m. and wondering if this creation is going to be good and what it's going to look like in the future. I was enjoying what we were creating more than ever before.
I remember the first night we chatted, sitting together at Tim's house about the future. It's the one thing that I will never regret making an assumption on, is that I assumed his heart was in the right place. But I think Tim's intuition, Tim's gut, led us to a place that was, it had just good intentions. And that's where, you know, you don't have an opportunity to put your intentions into the whiskey for almost 99.9% of situations. It just doesn't, the opportunity doesn't exist. So if you lay out, okay, we just changed laws. Okay, we just have this opportunity to create something new and unique for ourselves in the community of Chattanooga. Okay, we have an opportunity to scale up this idea and change everything again. Those moments don't happen ever. So when you see them happen, you have to seize that moment and make sure that you make something of it. I'm so proud of this. So. Sounds delicious.
Can you swing a hammer on camera without the whole nation of males judging you? I don't care who you are. You can swing.
I just cried on camera with the whole nation.
I actually think that, yeah. No, I think actually you will be revered for being a male crying on camera.
I thought both were beautiful expressions of manhood, so.
Grant is secure, much more than I am in his manhood.
That's great.
Smell it.
It has like a coffee finish on it, like
Yeah.
a bitter coffee finish. It's really nice. But then like the front of the palate's so flavorful and like so, I don't know what it is yet, but it's like caramel note, a butterscotch nose.
Yeah, you're
Big, like,
all of the. Yep. They.
That's like perfectly balanced. Like
Thank you.
yeah, just at the end there, it's like
Yeah, a little.
my dad would call it chocolatey finish. It's pretty nice.
Yep.
What did you say?
Just saying, I love your brother. He said it's perfectly balanced. The compliment of the day. So, kudos to Grant and team.
This is so good. This is so good.
Chattanooga Whiskey makes a great whiskey, and that it's made authentically in downtown Chattanooga, and people should come see for themselves what that's all about.
As Tim floated away on his boat, I thought of the new friends we made. I thought of the friendship Grant and Tim have, how much they care for each other, and how they get to put those good intentions into the whiskey. And I think about how every time from here on out, when I sip a Chattanooga whiskey, I'll be sipping on something I can believe in.
moving stuff from here.
Dude, how about getting it up
down.
here?
That's insane, yeah.
They horses
That's
are
insane.
pulling this shit up here.
That's crazy.
Like I said before we started this, I'm not going to be your best tour guide. Horses pulled this shit up here. That's like
That's what we're looking for. I don't want to.